Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'm very pleased to be joined by Ashvir Sangha. Ashvir is the candidate for Birmingham Edgbaston for the Conservative Party in the forthcoming election for the position of Member of Parliament. Ashvir, welcome to SIKH Channel. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we'll get straight into it. It's a fraught election with a lot of historic firsts, and one of the big firsts is that the Conservative Party is in meltdown and collapsing. Are you still committed to the Conservatives?
I think first of all, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'm Ashvir Sangha. I'm standing to be the new MP for Birmingham Edgbaston, as Mr. Pal has said. And ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਨਾ ਜੀ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਆਏ ਸੀ 1950s ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ England, and mom and dad raised me in Harborne and ਜੋਰ ਲਾਇਆ ਸੀ education ਵਾਸਤੇ, and they were very proud ਸੀ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ Oxford University ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਮੈਂ Oxford Union president ਬਣ ਗਏ.
Because ਇਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਪਤਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ, Ashvir Oxford University ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ ਸੀ, but also ਉੱਥੇ ਜਿੱਤ ਪਾਈ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ Oxford Union Students Union ਹੁੰਦੀ, ਉਹਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਾਣ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਬਹੁਤ prestigious ਹੈਗੀ, ਬਹੁਤ ਔਖਾ ਹੈਗਾ president ਬਣਨ ਲਈ. And you were the president of the Oxford Students Union.
Yeah, the Oxford Union. And then after university, I set up a small business delivering education programs. We did programs here in Dubai, in Singapore, in India. And then I joined Andy Street, who was mayor for the last 7 years.
And how long were you with Andy Street?
I was with Andy for 2 years, just over 2 years. Yes. I was one of his main advisors. And what you say is true. The national picture right now is very tough. But ultimately, over the history of the last 100 years, the major two parties in this country, Labour and Conservative, prove very resilient. And actually, the Conservatives have been in power for 14 years, so there will be challenges that come with that. But there are still, about 2 weeks to go until election day. And as we've seen in the India general election and in other elections, the predictions are not always what happens. And people will have a choice to make on Keir Starmer, on Rishi Sunak, on their respective teams, on their respective policies. So that national fight will take place. But there is also a local choice. And people will make a local choice as well as a national choice in Edgbaston. And everything we're seeing in the campaign suggests that for a number of reasons, which we could even go into, that it is going to be a particularly close race in my hometown seat.
Anybody who's voted Conservative in the past, should they now vote for reform because they are pursuing a lot of the traditional policies, particularly a lot of the Conservative voters in the past have been fed up with immigration issues? What do you think about that?
Yeah. It's very interesting to see the effect that the so-called protest parties, on the left you have George Galloway, on the right you have Nigel Farage. Whatever people think of them, Galloway and Farage are both quite charismatic figures. They have a following, and maybe they are more blockbuster than the personalities of Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. So they are making a lot of noise, they're getting a lot of attention, and they are actually shaping what the major parties are doing. So actually, there now is almost a battle of, can Keir Starmer sound tough on immigration? Can Rishi sound tough on immigration? So it's very interesting to see the effect that these other parties are having on that, the immigration tone. And the truth is that the leaders can only be so far ahead of the public sentiment, and we do as leaders, as politicians, have to affect the public sentiment, and there is clearly a public sentiment for a sensible approach to the immigration issue.
But obviously, as an MP for Birmingham Edgbaston, you're more focused on local issues, and the local 100%. Issues are getting an appointment with the GP, transport, potholes, and crime.
Yeah.
And these have been happening under Conservative, or is it Labour?
Well, I think the issues that come up again and again when we're out campaigning are these very local issues. So people look at the things people are raising with me are things like cars being broken into, homes being broken into, the local Labour council's bankruptcy and the effect that's having on council tax levels, on service levels. People talk to me about, as you say, getting a GP's appointment, you know, these very local issues, because it's really about quality of life. And a good politician, a good local leader can help to use the voice of an MP seat to push those issues and fight for people's quality of life, fight for people to feel safe and secure. And when I worked with Andy Street, I learned firsthand, I had a great apprenticeship with him, because like him, I would focus on being proactive, locally focused and independent minded. And use the power of an MP, yes. Use the power of an MP's voice to address those local issues, because you can do a lot more than people may think to help those issues by getting people around the table and pushing the
A lot of it is national policies like crime and healthcare. And Ashvir, are you straddled, and is it a difficult fight for you really? Because the Conservatives are having a very bad time in the press, aren't they? Rishi Sunak has had a lot of bad press with D-Day, with Sky TV and the betting thing. It's just on and on really. I mean, how much of that will rub off on you?
The point you make, Mr. Val, about this, these things are generally national, that is true to an extent, but it's not the whole story. And also, you know, it's party political season. So some, you know, people who are standing against me might say it's 14 years of Conservative government that has led to these issues like crime or the other things you mentioned. But I might say that we've had a Labour Police and Crime Commissioner since 2012 in the West Midlands. So is it their failure to grip the crime issue? But the truth is that these are issues that need to be addressed by active local MPs. And obviously, I can see, just as anyone can see, the challenges that the national campaigns have had nationally, like the D-Day issue, like the Sky TV issue, these things you mentioned. But when you take away all the noise, people will go in quietly on the 4th of July and they will make a private decision, and they will look at Rishi Sunak, David Cameron, Jeremy Hunt, they will look at Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves and Angela Rayner, and they will make the choice that they think is best for themselves and their families and their future prosperity. And it might prove to be closer than you think, but it is true. I don't know, my opponent doesn't know, no one knows to what extent people will vote nationally in Edgbaston versus voting locally. But the history of Birmingham Edgbaston is actually that it's an electorate that likes having a local MP with a strong independent streak. That's the history of the seat, so maybe we'll see that show up in the result.
And you said you and your opponent, and you're referring to Preet Gill. Is it just between the two of you? There aren't other candidates. You've got the independent candidate, largely on the international issue of the horrible events in Gaza, and then you've got reform. But is it just down to you and Preet Gill, do you think?
I think, judging by the history of the seat, it's very likely that it will be either myself or Preet elected on the 4th of July. And it's a very interesting contest because you have two hometown kids who are both British Sikh, who are fighting for the right to serve the people of the constituency.
Why can't we just leave Preet to it? She's been in the seat now for a number of years and she seems to be doing a good job. Why not leave it to her? What will you offer? Anything more than Preet has not?
I think it's time for a new generation of leaders to do things differently. And for every person you meet who may have a favourable opinion, there's also others that feel that more could have been done, more could have been achieved in Edgbaston. But the main difference is this. Despite all that we might have in common in terms of that background and the hometown links, the main difference is this. Our current MP is much more party political than me, in my opinion, and is much more nationally focused and chasing promotion in London. My focus is local. So that's the real substantive choice.
I see. And how will you do things differently? Because I know driving through Harborne and Edgbaston, I have to dodge potholes and my car's suffering a bit because of all the potholes. And I know elderly people have to be careful on the pavements. Yeah. And how can you fix that? I mean, will you get out there with a shovel and fill those potholes?
Ultimately, if you're sitting in Harborne, Quinton, Bartley Green, Edgbaston, North Edgbaston, and you're wondering who to vote for, one of the decisions should be, have things got better in Edgbaston over the last 7 years since we've had our current MP, or have they got worse? And I think there's not enough achievement locally. And people might say that it's not all in control of the MP, but ultimately, if you are an MP in an area, you are responsible for the quality of life in that area. The buck stops with you. You have to champion quality of life in that area. You have to act as chairman of the board of Edgbaston and make sure that the place gets the funding it needs, gets the investment it needs. And one thing that's really let us down in this great city of Birmingham is the Labour-led city council's financial issues. And I think all Birmingham MPs, there are 10 MPs in Birmingham, I think I would bring a new energy as one of those 10 Birmingham MPs to standing up to and fighting and working with and holding accountable the leader and the leadership team and chief executive and their team at Birmingham City Council to fix those issues and apply the pressure that's needed to fix those issues. Because if we can get our local authority back on firm footing, that will lead to positive consequences on the ground in my constituency.
But if you are elected, Ashvir, you'll be very much part of the opposition and not the government. I mean, no matter what the polls say or how things might change, you know, it's extremely likely, it's almost a foregone conclusion, it will be a Labour government. So if you're elected, you'll be an opposing MP.
We know that there are MPs who are of the government party, who are not of the government party, who get things done. I worked closely with Andy Street and he got things done locally, working with Labour politicians and Conservative politicians. Ultimately, you have to look at the calibre of the individual, their vision, their energy, and the choice is clear. You either have a proactive, locally focused, independent-minded MP, or you opt for a different approach, which is much more party political and is 1.5 eyes on London and not enough time on the patch. Ultimately, I will be vigorous in applying my time and energy and resources and attention to the patch. And that will lead to results, because I will get on the phone to people, I will get people in the office, I will knock heads together, and I will make sure that I fight for people, fight for local people in Edgbaston to get things done, as my mentor and former boss Andy Street showed me how to do.
You're very articulate and well presented and obviously super intelligent, but you lack experience. You're not an experienced politician. Will that count against you, Ashvir?
Well, it's a very interesting question. We've seen what experienced quote-unquote politicians give us. That's not always a good thing to have decades and decades of experience, as we've seen, because a lot of politicians have let us down. I think you need a combination of youth and energy and vision and experience. And ultimately, I grew up locally, I went to school locally, I live locally, I studied history and politics at Oxford University, I was elected as president of the Oxford Union, I set up an education business with activity here in the UK and abroad. I spent 2 years as communications advisor to Andy Street, who was Mayor of the West Midlands for the last 7 years. I think I have a good record of experience combined with a level of energy that the voters will like.
And in terms of your future aspirations, future ambitions, would you one day like to become Prime Minister?
I can't think right now, Mr. Val, beyond 4th of July. My total focus, the reason that I'm in this, is to serve the place I'm from. So my total focus is on winning my hometown seat on the 4th of July, and I hope that the viewers of SIKH Channel and the people of my constituency will give me that support, and I can serve that hometown well in the next Parliament.
The Sikh community, particularly who watch the SIKH Channel, many of our elderly viewers, they might be in a quandary between yourself and Preet Gill, both from a Sikh background, both reputable and good candidates from the Sikh community, and perhaps they want to vote for both of you, but it's very difficult to decide. Why should anybody vote for you and not go with Preet, who's tried and tested and already in the job and is established?
I think no one is entitled to this seat. And you're right, it is a very interesting choice of Sadi Kuri, Sada Munda. You know, this people have to weigh up privately, but, you know, think about, you know, traditional family values, think about, well-run finances, tax being low, and good services and opportunities for you and your family. Think about who's going to impose more costs, whether it's school fees or council tax, and who's going to lower costs. Look at the options in front of you, and being in the seat and being established doesn't necessarily mean that the record of results is there. And people will have an opportunity in the next 2 weeks to see us debate, to see her materials, see my materials, see her videos, see my videos, and people will have an opportunity to choose on the merits of what they see. And the beautiful thing is that neither of us will know. People will go in private and they will make that choice, and I think I have a strong offer to local voters to make.
And going forward, in terms of the future of the Conservative Party, perhaps a little bit premature, but it's important to discuss it because the Conservative Party is in meltdown. What is going to happen? Will you stay a true Conservative forever? Or will you think about joining another party or a merger? Where is it going for the Conservative Party? Because it looks like a sinking ship.
Well, if you look at the history of the main two political parties, Labour has had times in the past where they've said it's meltdown, it's going to disappear, it had fractures, it had splits, it had the militant tendency, it had Tony Benn and his supporters, it's had the Jeremy Corbyn effect. The Conservatives have had their division in the past and divisions of the present, but Labour and Conservative parties have both proved quite resilient over time. But there's lots of division in all parties. I mean, just look at the Labour deselections that we've seen recently in the news. Look at the division on the Conservative side, and it's very interesting now that the Galloway effect on the left and the Farage effect on the right is clearly going to influence the future of the main two parties. But I have no idea, you have no idea, and the viewers have no idea what will happen on 4th of July.
Absolutely. And we do ardas and wish you well from SIKH Channel, the Sikh community, for your future your political career. We've got two strong candidates from the Sikh community, Preet Gill and Ashvir Sangha. As SIKH Channel, we are impartial, and we'd like to promote all Sikh candidates across the country. And indeed, if any candidate for Birmingham Edgbaston or any other area wishes to be interviewed and have airtime, they're welcome to do so. Please do get in touch with me or one of the team. Ashvir, thank you very much for getting in touch and joining us here today at the SIKH Channel office and giving us your views. And we wish you well with the forthcoming election. Any final short message to the SIKH Channel viewers?
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on the SIKH Channel, and for all of those of you watching at home on the 4th of July, you will have a choice to make, and I hope you study the options and the message I have shared about the kind of proactive, locally focused, independent-minded MP I want to be will connect with you and your families, and I earn your support on the 4th of July. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.